Good evening, everyone, and welcome to round 3 of the Octane Online Racing Simrigs Sprint Series for Split Yellow here from the magnificent Brands Hatch circuit. My name is Alexis Bowen, and joining me for Split Yellow tonight is the ever wonderful George Cook. How are you, Cookie?
Yeah, doing good, thank you very much. And how appropriate to bring back a commentator with an English accent for the English track of the season. I think that works out quite well, especially here in West Kingsdown, Kent, England, at Brands Hatch. A legendary circuit, 3.9 kilometers, 9 turns. Sheen, get a little bit scary, go side by side into Hawthorne or Dinkeldale. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, certainly. It's a deceptively tricky track. You look at the track map and it looks awfully simple, but when you get down to it with the undulation of the track surface and also how crucial it is to get every single corner right. As you said, there is only 9 to 10 corners on this track. It is certainly one of the hardest for these drivers to contend with. Right now, we are in the end of practice. Things just did get underway a little bit late, so we do have a bit of time to talk away as the race control just says a quick hello to everyone in the chat, and we'll just have a look over there. Hello, Peach, Ahmed, Smitty, Frontline, Ferox, Craigdale, and Conan. Nice to have you all in here on this Wednesday night where we've got 2 splits of action tonight. We've got Split Yellow coming up very, very shortly with the qualifying starting in 2.5 minutes. And then after that, we will be moving over to Split Green, which should be very, very exciting indeed.
Certainly will be. And looking at the standings at the moment, after 2 rounds, it is Matthew Lamb leading the way here in Split Yellow in the pro class. And technically only on 158 points. As his drop round is 158 points at the moment. So as we were saying just before, he's literally got a win in the pocket, which is a very comfortable way to be heading towards halfway through the season. Then it's Mitch Hobbs in P2, the pro class, and Paul Britt in P3. So Paul Britt wasn't here at Zandvoort, but we did have Mitch Hobbs in both. Not a round 1 to remember for him. Then in silver class, it is Benjamin Piper leading the way on 102 points, followed closely by Jeremy Zeri on 101, followed by Katheel Slade. That's your top 3 for silver. Pro-Am is Chris Crote. He is in the Ford Mustang. And then Wesley Yao in P2 and Tony Spence in P3. And looking down at the standings here at our lovely AM class, Ben Winton has taken the lead for the moment on a decent amount of points, 33 points for him, equal to Jaden Rodinella, who's in Pro-Am, of course. And then Thrindu Ateneya, I think it is, Ateneyake, I think it is, because...
yes, that is correct.
The name is just slightly cut off, which was just the most convenient time for me to see a ... instead of the last 2 characters of the name. He's second in AM class, followed by Paul Kranick. So it's going to be an exciting one. And Matthew Lamb, no surprise to see him dominating.
Yeah, that's it. Matthew Lamb, very, very fast. He's, as you said, I believe he's won the first 2 rounds, 158 points in each, and he currently leads the way in this practice session, 400s clear. So a little bit of a taste of what's to come in qualifying. Nice and tight at the top there between Lamb and Britt. Hobbs, who's currently sitting second in the championship, will want to be doing a lot more in the upcoming qualifying session than P10 and 1.1 seconds off the pace in his Lamborghini. As you said, the first round did not go to plan for him as he disconnected very, very early on after a few incidents that did not go his way. So it was a very unfortunate way to end out the first round, but he had a much improved second round, finishing second in the points last time out.
Yeah, and let's talk Brands Hatchback, because this track is just so awesome. And I do note we've got Graham Hill, our lovely Graham Hill, OOR's Graham Hill, in the chat as well, saying nice to hear my voice back. Thank you very much, Graham. I appreciate that. Nice to be back in the commentary box. But Graham Hill Bend, of course, a very, very famous one. Not the Graham Hill you might be thinking of. It's the original Graham Hill. But of course, that is where the infield really gets started. Druids, a good overtaking opportunity. So where are we thinking? I mean, usually it's Druids where people come to a little bit together. Surtees, you can get a few people diving down the inside. You just want to avoid everything else apart from maybe Hawthorne, but only if you've got a good overlap. And then really your last chance is going to be either into Paddock Hill Bend or in through Clark Curve.
Yeah, that's it. There's not a lot of places where you can actually get through here at Brands Hatch. It's just the nature of the circuit, I feel. But certainly opportunities for drivers to make moves when others around them making mistakes. And with how close to the limit you are around here, making mistakes, very, very common occurrence. So we could be in for some very interesting action. But the qualifying session has begun. We've got 12 minutes of qualifying here at Brands Hatch, and the first driver out there is the number 15. Would you believe that? That is Matty Lamb. So he's gone out there to send a message to all of them. We'll see how that transpires for him. Currently we're looking at Richard Walls, who is just coming out of the pit lane now in the number 17 Ferrari.
I think Peach here raises a good point in chat. You overtake at Brands when the driver ahead goes off. And
Yeah.
that's actually very
Completely agree. That is very, very accurate statement there from Peach in the chat there. Oh, there you go. Graham Hill giving us some facts about Brands Hatch, who used to live 20 minutes away, if you don't mind. So
yeah, he's also claiming that it was named after him. So
yes,
you know, grains of salt maybe. Graham, very nice. Also see on Twitch.
Totally trust him. Totally trust him.
Totally trust him. Yeah, I mean, I've raced with the guy. He was pretty consistent out there. He probably won't appreciate me being so skeptical. But also on Twitch, welcome in to everyone live on Twitch. Octane Online Racing, of course, and another little bit of housekeeping item as well. Simrigs Sprint Series. Get your 5% off if you're an Octane Online Racing Patreon. Head to simrigs.com and bag yourself a deal.
Yeah, so it'll be something I'll be needing to look at if I'm wanting to return into the Sprint Series, which, I mean, commentating is great fun, but you can't beat being out there on the track with some of these fantastic drivers. And just on the Twitch chat, we do have Mr. Scuttleman in the Twitch chat, who was in the Academy Series last night. So great to have you in, and, well, I'm assuming you are fairly new to OOR, so welcome indeed, and we hope to see you out on the circuit in the Sprint Series very, very soon, once you've learnt a few things in our brilliant Academy Series. Of course, the Octane Online Racing community, a fantastic place to be if you're wanting to learn how to sim race in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Someone who doesn't need a lot of learning, however, is Matthew Lamb in the Porsche Motorsport number 15 car. Coming around at the final corner now at Clark Curve and down the Brabham Straight. The time on the board is going to be a 1:22.757. That's the target they've all got to attack. Marsh 1.6 seconds off, Spence 1.1, Piper 1 second off. So far is a really solid time laid down by Lamb. The closest right now is the Laundry House Audi of Brits. Never mind, that is now Mitch Hobbs, who is 4/10 off. So brilliant lap time from Matthew Lamb to start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. And conditions are ideal out there. 18 degrees atmospheric and 24 degrees on the track. So it really is optimum conditions, similar to what they've had in practice. 22.7 is a very, very big time to have set early on. 4/10 a gap back to Hobbs, so he's got a lot of work to do in his Lamborghini. Having a look, of course, at Paul Britt here. Love this livery. And in the Audi as well, it's brave and bold. I love that. And he's got 4/10 to make up as well. Only 15/10 of 100 to the second, I should say, between P2 and 3. So that competition very, very close at the moment. And I did also see race control popping up, built on an airfield question mark. No, this is actually built on a military training ground. Previously was an amphitheater for a long time as well, as I understand it, a grassy hollow, shaped like an amphitheater, I should say, but a military training ground. So one of the few tracks in Britain that wasn't built on an airfield.
It would be somewhat strange if it was built on an airfield, really, given how hilly it is around this area. There isn't really a whole lot of space for a airfield to be built, but Matthew Lamb's gone even faster with a 22.5, so he's extended his advantage to now half a second as Britt improves to P2, a tenth and a half clear of Hobbs. Here is Johnson, who's looking to get involved in that battle for P2. He gets a pretty solid entry, but loses all the time on the exit, so not going to be an improvement of position for Johnson, who currently sits fourth in the driver's standings, and also fourth in this qualifying session, just ahead of the two prime drivers of Kong and Rondinella.
Of course, Luke Johnson, I think he made the upgrade this season from Pro-Am, or Silver, I should say, to Pro, so this is a big season for him, and he's got a lot of work to do, but, you know, he's going to have fun out there. Now he's driving properly amongst the pros, which he rightly should do. He's done a lot of work, that man, and back in the McLaren, which is really nice to see. I'm so glad he's back in the McLaren. It's where I know he's got his best racing, does his best racing, so it's great to see him back in the McLaren. Not a huge amount in the McLaren this season. Jaden Rondelella, he's going to get points from me as well. Anyone in a McLaren, but anyone in an Audi is going to get my respect massively, because it is not an easy car to drive. Sounds great, a little bit tricky in the corners sometimes.
Yeah, you can just see Britt having to really struggle with the handling of the Audi, and it's not going to find any improvement on this lap, so you'd think he'll have to and he's going to keep going. I would think he would have pulled off to put a new set of tyres on, but he's going to continue off. He's found about a 10th through that first corner at Paddock Hill. Doesn't look like it's been very easy for him, but given it's an Audi, you wouldn't expect anything less. Just following along the behind the Bentley there of Piper as he goes through Graham Hill bend, now into Surtees corner. Get a nice late-ish apex to maximize the exit down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's looking very, very good so far for the Audi driver in the Laundry House colours. He's about 2 tenths up. It's not close enough to beat what Lamb's doing, but he's getting close, and that's great commitment through Hawthorne's Bend. He's gonna really try and tackle the time that the Porsche driver has set. Loses some time through Westfield, now into Dingledale and Sheens. Gets right up to the grass. I think on his best lap he really nailed it, because he's not finding a lot in the second half of the lap compared to the first half, but it's still going to be about a 2/10 improvement as he comes up to Clark Curve. Wants to try and maximize the exit, but he's fighting the car all the way around and up to the line. 2.5 tenths improvement. He's going to halve the deficit he's got to make up to Lamb, and it's 2.5 tenths now he needs to find if he wants any hope of getting pole position.
Yeah, you can just see with the Audi, the rear end did not want to play ball all the way through that lap, really struggling to fight, and just you can see him on the edge of counter-steering input through Dingledale, really pushing the limits of where that Audi wants to put itself, but nonetheless doing an incredible job to wrangle it around the track, especially versus the Porsche up top, which we know, of course, in the hands of Matthew Lamb is a weapon just as much as the Macca and the Lambo, which we're being told is very heavily bopped at a circuit like this. Apparently also Academy Split B is half McLarens. I need to watch that. I'm going to try and find a server password. Maybe I'll sign up to the Academy Series and just sit in there and watch, because that sounds like great fun. Now we're on board with the McLaren of Spence. He's actually found himself up in the P4, so he's leading Pro-Am class with that, or was, until Zeri puts his Ford in the 222 up into P3, only 4 tenths away, so it feels like there might be a little bit of track improvement happening out there, or certainly a little bit more eagerness from the drivers to get that better time in. They've got their bankers, now it's really time to hone in on the apexes, hone in on the exits, try and find where the grip is going to end up being. The tyres, of course, making sure they're in the right window as well. Suspense leading Pro-Am, Piper P2 in silver class, currently P6 in his Bentley. That has just changed to P4. So every time I say something, Alexis, it immediately changes.
Yeah, it's chopping and changing everywhere you look right now in Split. 3 minutes to go. Jerry doing a very, very nice job. Of course, he was very competitive last season. Still in the silver class, but doing nicely in his Mustang, and is finding time. Could get very close to what Paul Briss has set in the number 37 Audi. Not overly committed going through Sheen Curve. Now into Sterling's. That's overly committed, and there goes the lap. And he's pulled it up.
Yeah, he's hit the little bump. There's a little bump just before the grasses on the entry to that corner, and he's clipped that ever so slightly. It's running wide of the apex, and of course, once you're wide of the apex, and you're pretty much going to be full lock through the middle of the apex in that corner, you're trying to carry the speed and really use the mechanical grip on the car at that point. It sends you wide. He's got even wider. He's kind of hit the accelerator trying to recover a little bit. Just hasn't really happened to him. Cashmore livery, McLaren, love this. By the way, I have to call attention to Zeri's livery. Absolutely awesome. Sort of like a
beautiful
throwback to sort of American style. I don't know quite what the plane is called. It's not called a Mustang. It's not actually called a Mustang.
It's some kind of bomber, at least, I would say.
It's, yeah, some kind of fighter bomber thing, and it's really cool. And I have to admit, I'm surprised we aren't seeing as many custom liveries for a track like this, but maybe it's just a little too much effort halfway through the season. Let's see what Luke Johnson can do. He's lost a lot on the exit there because he's back out of the lap. I think he's just going to go for this one last hot lap and see what he can do.
He'll have enough time for 2. It's just whether he wants to take 2. Meanwhile, Hobbs will be looking for some improvement. He's been overshadowed slightly by the silver class competitors that have managed to get ahead of him. He wouldn't want to be too far behind Paul Britt, as being a 6-round season, there's only so many rounds you can make points up on your rivals, and he already had to use a significant drop round right at the start of the season, so he's got to be on his game right through to the end. Going through Clark Curve, it's not going to be enough to improve, so he's only got one more attempt up his sleeve, and he's got company behind him. He's got Spence only 7 thousandths behind, and Kong not too far behind that either, so could get a little bit sketchy here for Hobbs if he wants to fight it with Britt in the Split Yellow Championship.
Yeah, I do find with Brands Hatch, it's one of those circuits where getting a really on-the-edge fast lap is so tricky because the margins are so small at a circuit like this, and that's where a driver of the caliber of Hobbs, you know, he'll have been pushing right to that bleeding edge all the way through the beginning of qualifying, and sometimes that can come back and actually bite you at the end of the day, because if you push too hard, you keep invalidating the laps, you dirty up the tires, you're losing temperature, all of that starts to play against you, and then you're getting under pressure as well. And then suddenly you're on your final lap, you need to final the time, you're getting the old green delta up in the top left-hand corner, and you start to look at it a little bit more than you start to look at the apexes. He's doing really well through so far. Through Dingle, there we go. Up through Sheen. He's run a bit wide there, but he's still up on his time. Manages to keep control of the cars. We head through Clark Curve. Very nicely handled there. Let's see what he can do. He's up 4 tenths. That's not Clark Curve. Sterling's, of course. Now into Clark Curve. Final corner. This is the key one for him. Will he be able to hold that speed? Loses a little bit through the apex, but he's going to gain that back a little bit. And across the line, it's a very good lap. It's good enough for P3, but by only 15 hundredths of a second. The gap between these two was 15 hundredths at the beginning of qualifying.
Yeah, that's an incredible lap there from Mitchell Hobbs right at the death. Looks like he could have been fighting it potentially for that pole position, but looks like Matthew Lamb is going to take it with that 22.5 he set in that first stint. Jerry is not going to improve. He's going to be P4 at best. Is there anyone behind on any sort of lap? The 420 is not on a lap. The 777 is, though. K coming up to the final corner now at Clark Curve. Can he find any improvement? I don't think he'd be able to find another position, and it's going to be P12 for the 777, but that is your qualifying done here for Split Yellow at Brands Hatch, and it is once again Matthew Lamb on top. He is indomitable so far at the start of this Simrigs Sprint Series season.
Yeah, big congratulations to them. Also to Zeri and Piper for putting in some really good laps in the silver category, and Tony Spence, who got himself up to P6 or 7, I think it was. Also some information, which is actually really good. Yeah, so turns out P51 Mustang. Yeah, that is what it's based on. That's what that livery comes from, the P51 Escort Fighter. And I don't know if this is true. I have to probably confirm this as well, but the Mustang horse is iconic. The Mustang car itself was named after the P51, confirmed by the head designer of the Mustang at the time. So I did not know that. That's very, very cool little bits of information. So take a look there on the right-hand side of the screen, the 222 in the P51 Mustang livery on a Mustang. So it's got the livery from the original inspiration. Absolutely love that. But once again, I have to comment, because this is my first time back in the comms box. Liveries in Split Yellow, absolutely awesome. Good job, everyone, once again. A couple of more plain ones out there, but I don't mind that, I'll be honest.
Yeah, pretty much every livery throughout all the splits. Incredible. Like, the livery game has gotten so good over the past few seasons, and I think that's a testament to how strong this community is and how closely bonded it is. But we'll take a look down your grid now. Lamb and Britt's the front row, followed by Hobbs and Jerry. Then you've got Piper, a very good performance from him, with Spence, the lead of the Pro-Am drivers, followed closely by the second of the Pro-Ams in Kong. Johnson will be a little bit disappointed with P8, but he has the pace for sure. Ron Danella in P9 with Slade rounding out your top 10. Then we move further down to find McDowell and K on row 6. The two Porsches there. Marsh and Winton. Winton doing very nicely there in P14 as the lead of the AM-class drivers. Then you have Yao and Lim there, P15 and P16, followed by King and Spenceley there, P17 and P18, the Aston Martin. And the Porsche Kidman in the Mustang in P19, followed by the second of the M-Class drivers, Tanayake, in P20 in the number 2 Aston. Then we have Nash in the 66, Bank in the 786, Fakuri in the 830, and that would be Lloyd, I'm guessing, in the 299.
That's correct. And it's going to be a great little race here. Of course, 60 minutes on the clock.
I just noticed on the side there the little Adelaide 500 branding, which of course is this weekend in the world of supercars. You love to see it. But we're about 20 seconds away from a race start here. We've got one mandatory pit stop. I believe it is a 25-second fixed fuel stop that they have to make.
It is, yeah. So the fixed fuel stop, no pit window, of course. So you're basically good to go. You can always execute that old strat of just do one lap, get yourself in clean air, which might be a really sensible move at Brands Hatch, especially when you're so close quarters with cars in front of you. When there is a car in front of you and they're making small mistakes here and there, it can really compromise the line that you're taking. That can overwork the tyres. You can start to get that dirty air feeling, especially after you come down Pilgrim's Drop through Hawthorne, through Dinkeldale. That entire back section there, really tricky to follow cars. So if you're going to make the overtake, you've got to make it soon. Obviously big opportunities at the beginning of this race as you head into the first corner, and then Druids. Up the hill to the Druids, we always see people go 3x3 through there for some reason. No idea why. It seems like it's a good place to overtake, it's like the widest part of the track or something like that. But it's going to be a good one. Now the track temperature has changed ever so slightly, so we're now 21 degrees Celsius track temperature, 17 in the air, so slightly cooler conditions for the race at 5 p.m. and that's only set to get cooler as we barrel through towards 6 p.m. in this race. Going to be a good one. We've got people in chat saying surely no tyres, pit last 5-ish mins. I'm not quite sure what that last part means, but certainly tyres could be one to avoid putting on. But with a 25-second fixed refueling time, I'd say you probably might as well. Depends on how hard you're going, really, but you might as well.
Yeah, well, I think what Conan is trying to say is pit within the last 5 minutes of the race and get it done as late as you possibly can, really. But yeah, Peach bring up another great point is brands can be very rough on the tires with pressure losses. So, and that's very easy to get around here with how often you tend to drop the tires into the outside grass, particularly on the left-hand side of the car. But we will go double file very, very shortly for an hour of racing here at Brands Hatch. Given that you are a guest in the commentary box tonight, Cookie, would you like to take us away for this one?
Let's do it. All right, here we are in England. The English commentator behind the microphone, side by side. The drivers do go. A little bit of catching up there for the McLaren of Spence to do before we get started through this beautiful part of the circuit. Gravel trap, of course, on the left-hand side. Pit on the right-hand side. It's going to be one to watch as they head towards their pit stops. Kind of tricky to get it right sometimes. We're about to go green flag racing. It's round 3 of 6 for the Simrigs Sprint Series. This is split yellow, and Matthew Lamb will lead us away as we go green out on circuit. Let's see who gets the best start. They're already side by side, 3 wide. Johnson got a great run off the line, but he's ended up in the middle of a gaggle of cars. Side by side, Lamb has the inside line into Druids. That's going to benefit him massively. Paul Britt trying around the outside. Will he be able to hold it? No, he's going to tuck back in as they head towards Graham Hill Bend. And Hobbs has also managed to secure the position away from Zeri. Zeri nearly runs into the back of him, does compromise his apex there in Graham Hill Bend. Might leave him a little bit vulnerable to Ben Piper, who's coming up hot in that Bentley. And now onto the straight. The Pilgrims drop. Love this place. Great place for overtaking. Get a little bit of whiff of slipstream as well as you head down this straight. So it could be a little bit of pressure for Matthew Lamb at the top, but I don't think there's going to be any side-by-side action as we head through Hawthorne Bend. Beautiful part of the circuit as well. Really tricky to get right. That's very, very wide for Paul Britt in his Audi. It's going to compromise him and brings Mitch Hobbs into the conversation as we head to lovely part of the circuit. I love this. Sheens. Beautiful place. Sean Muller, it is his favourite corner in all of sim racing, and that is a decent opening lap for everyone. Doesn't look like we've got too much action. A yellow flag in the background, though. 3 cars involved. The 97, the 838, and the 777, I believe. And Johnson. Whew. All right.
Yeah,
thought about
close.
It.
Very close there for Johnson. There looks like at the back. Yeah, it's Kranich, Fakuri, and K that have been involved. So the 97, the 830, and the 777. That was very tight there for Johnson trying up the inside of Spence. Will he try again as we run down towards Druids? He tries, but Spence is defending the inside very valiantly, doing nicely, holding up the P6 position at the moment. We know how fast Johnson can be, and it looks like it's only a matter of time until he gets past, but he has to keep one eye behind him because Caffel Slade is on his way. You're not going to try at the inside of Surtees, are you? No, he has to back out of it, and that was probably the smart decision, but it could compromise his run now, going down towards Hawthorne's Bend, as he's got Slade all over his gearbox, but I don't think it's going to be worse making a move for Slade. He does try around the outside, but you're not going to get anything done there. We've only seen that a few times, but Johnson does run wide, and that's going to allow Slade up the inside of Westfield Bend, and he's up into P7. Very nice move. Is Johnson going to come back at him up the inside of Dingledale and Sheen's Curve? You're not going to get done there, and that has compromised his run. Now, will Rondinella try and make a move? No, he does join back onto the circuit in the nick of time, but it's been an awful lap here for Luke Johnson.
Certainly has been, yeah. It all started off with that entry into Hawthorne where he defended the inside line. Newcastle had the run on him, but it's often not a place you have to defend because going up the inside there is more or less, you're more or less about to commit murder if you go up the inside at Hawthorne there, let's be honest. Fastest lap now with Matthew Lamb. Fastest lap, I should say. Fastest Lamb. Well, he is the fastest Lamb, but he's also got the fastest lap there and a 1.3 second gap out the top. Looking at Mitch Hobbs, he's right on the back of Paul Britt. Nice battle brewing between the Lamborghini and the Audi. A little bit of a tighter line there for the Audi. Through Graham Hill we go. Might be an opportunity for Ascend, but it'd be a big lunge. Still takes the shallower line though, does the Audi, as we head through Surtees and now up the back straight. Great racing so far that we've seen. A real shame for Luke Johnson that didn't work out. Lost a couple of positions as a result of it. Technically, if he had overtaken the car in front, he would have lost a couple of positions. Nonetheless, he'll be fighting his way back. Ben Piper's still in it. Zeri still in it. They're actually holding onto this top pack really nicely at the moment. It's really only Matthew Lamb that's escaping out the front. And a few times, every single time I see a car go on the gravel or the grass, I really just, my heart skips a beat.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it gets super, super tight and so easy to spin around when you get onto that grass and gravel. But I would just like to point out, it may only be 2 rounds into this championship. There may be a drop round involved. But these two, Britt and Hobbs, separated by 1 point in the championship right now. Hobbs on 134, Britt on 133 as Lamb again sets another fast lap at 22.955. Very, very competitive. That's 4 tenths faster than what Mitch Hobbs has been able to set on his previous lap, as that is wide for Piper in the background there, behind Jerry. We're not under pressure from Spence at this stage, but Spence doing very nicely to hold on against Slade and, of course, Johnson earlier. Johnson seems to have recovered a little bit. He's dropped Rondinella now by 1.5 seconds, but hasn't been able to close back in on Slade just yet. But I think Slade soon could be looking at move on the current Pro-Am leader in this race of the 420 McLaren of Spence.
Yeah, he's doing really well. I mean, he's 3 positions ahead of Jaden Rondinella, his nearest competitor, though getting under a little bit more pressure now by Kafil Slade, who's in the Ferrari 296. I think actually the Ferrari is underrated at Brands Hatch personally. It's got such a great front end and such great braking with engine braking that it is able to do. So it does have some advantages, but it's a tricky one to drive sometimes. So it makes me, it's going to be a look. Kafil Slade putting on the pressure, and Tony Spence holds his nerve beautifully through there, and then wow, I mean, actually surprised that he didn't go full send for the lunge, but I guess he realized that Tony was going to continue pulling in on him. Clark Curve a little bit wide for Kafil Slade. Luke Johnson now back in the conversation once again. He's going to do a switch to the outside into turn 1. Nothing's going to come of it at the moment. Just saw a yellow flag in the background. Yeah, we've got the 299 and 786 going at it once again, unfortunately for them. So more yellow flags out on track. These things do tend to happen. We nearly had one in the battle that we're watching right now. And that McLaren, yeah, it does understeer quite a lot with the setup you need to use here. A lot of the McLaren setup is kind of reliant on how you're breaking into the corner and how you're getting that rotation. Kafil Slade is going to have another little sniff. It's going to be more than a sniff. It's going to be a bit of a, it's not a send actually, but it's a nice move. It is.
A little bit of a block pass there. I like that from Kafil Slade, and he's up into P6, and now Spence is going to get overtaken by Johnson with Johnson's nice run. Will Spence try and hold in there? No, he knows he's not going to be able to stick the nose up the inside Hawthorne Spence. So Spence's brave defense of P6 comes to an end, and up goes Johnson. But Johnson goes very, very wide, and there you go. Spence back up into P7.
Yep. McLaren, it is very affected by the dirty air as well. I get the feeling he keeps getting a whiff of it, does Johnson, and then it doesn't quite account for it. That seems to be what's happening. Oh, the rear end is not playing ball whatsoever for Johnson. I feel like he could have been putting a little bit of a gap on Kefil Slade had he had a little bit of clean air in that McLaren, but he's yet to really secure the positions. Gets past and does some really nice overtaking, but then unfortunately just not able to secure the position in this race. Nonetheless, P8 for him, and at the end of the day, it's P4 in Pro Class. That's still not too bad. McDowell in Pro Class is the next competitor behind him in the 213, currently in P11, and 1.3 seconds, or 1.4 seconds ahead of Hayden Marsh in the 27. Lim is down there, Lim as well down there in P13. We're going to go on board for a replay of the beginning of this race and see what's happened. That's McDowell and the 777 car of Lucas K. And McDowell's come back onto the track and he's just sent him into the barrier.
Yeah.
And he's stuck there. Oh dear.
Yeah.
But what can you do in that situation? You're in the middle of the track, you've held your brakes, that's all you can do.
Yeah, really unfortunate there for Liam K. He was just completely stuck in no man's land, really, and just super unlucky. And yeah, he was the 777 that we saw around earlier, and unfortunately you had the likes of Fakuri and Kranich get involved in that one, so they've fallen a long way back. But with Lloyd and Banks' incident earlier, they've well, Kranich at least has been able to come back up into P21, which is solid for him. As now looks like Johnson's going to try and attack Spence once again, but he can't get the outside line. You're not going to get a huge run there. Tries to get the run going onto the Brabham Straight, but once again, can't get the traction down McLaren, and Spence is defending very, very well at the moment, you would dare say.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah, Spence is putting the car in the right place. Even when it came to being overtaken at Hawthorne, he put the car right on the outside, which is where you need to, and basically tempt the person saying, look, you want to overtake, you got to take the inside line. You know that you're going to end up committing some murder if you do that, so it's time for you to back out, even through Druids as well. We saw him there, nicely taking the inside line and doing it nice and early as well. No sudden movements back onto that defensive line. Johnson obviously has raced with him a few times before. So when you do race with within the community, you do start to get more familiar with the styles of people's driving. But nonetheless, that is a very predictable and very sensible way of driving from Tony Spence, and that's why he's holding on to P7 at the moment. And Jaden Rondinella is actually catching up to this. Oh, it's a little bit wide there at Hawthorne. Probably the scariest part. Did watch a GT World Challenge series that went here. It was in 8 hours of Brands Hatch, and I saw a McLaren have an absolutely awful accident. In real life, I wasn't actually at the circuit, but in real life, and it just clipped the edge of that Hawthorne curve, sent itself into the barrier, and actually flipped over the barrier. Some of you might have seen that clip on YouTube. And I have done that myself in the sim racing world. McLaren and me have had some interesting excursions to the Shadow Realm here. It is not a place you want to be.
Yeah, there's been some massive, massive crashes around here, I believe. The one I remember was very, very similar to that. Yeah, through Westfield Bend, there was a side-by-side with a few cars, and yeah, over the barrier the car went at Dingledale. Very, very scary. As McDowell, huge penalty for the 213. That contact that we saw earlier between himself and Kay, he's been given a drive-through penalty for that rejoin. That is huge consequence there for McDowell, and that is pretty much his race done.
Yeah, I think unfortunately I have to agree with the stewards on that one, because he exited the track at the exit of Graham Hill Bend. He came back in. They continued to move over to the left as if there was no one on the left-hand side. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell, especially in the split second that it does occur. But generally speaking, if you run wide on the right, any driver who's in a position to overtake you is going to end up on the inside, on the left-hand side, and that's exactly where the unfortunate victim of that event was. So I think that's probably a deserved one, unfortunately, for McDowell, but he'll continue, he'll go and do his drive-through, and he'll get back out on track and carry on. There isn't a massive split in the field yet. We haven't had any blue flags out on track as of yet, and we are just coming up in 12 minutes to go.
Hobbs has overtaken Britt.
Hobbs has overtaken Britt. We completely missed this because we were so focused on the battle.
No, Hobbs. And now we're back to score one.
So now he hasn't. So actually, we were totally right. We haven't missed any action, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing has happened.
Yeah, nothing's happened.
I'm calling that a broadcaster's curse. That's not a commentator's curse. That's a broadcaster's curse right there.
Yeah. Yeah. That. Yeah, that's all I really have to say on that one.
As the
That
battle
was a huge
continues,
save. Massive save, though, from Mitch Hobbs coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, with how tricky it is to hold on to that Lamborghini in most circumstances. Hold on to it while it's going about 45 degrees further sideways than it really needs to. He's just... Yeah. Oh, here you go. So how
Oh.
Hobbsy got through is it's very similar mistakes. They just traded mistakes, really, at Paddock Hill Bend. On that occasion, it was Britt going a bit wide on the exit at Hellwoods Hill up to Druids. And on the lap that we just saw, it was Hobbsy wide on the entry, trying to turn it in a bit more than he probably should have. 45 degrees sideways, managed to save it, but lost position back to Britt in the end, as there is a yellow flag, and that's the number 66, and number 66 is gone.
Oh dear, oh dear.
That's
we might
Tim
be able to get a
Nash.
replay. That is Tim Nash, yes. So we might be able to get a replay of that. I did hear in chat that it looks like Luke Johnson has gone into the pit lane, so he's actually done his mandatory stop quite early in this race, and I get the feeling that's...
Luke Johnson is nowhere to be
Where's
found.
he gone? He is actually gone.
We are down
My
to
timing
22
sheet's
drivers. We had 24 at the start. We're down to 22.
We have. So, unfortunately, sorry, he's not in the pits. He's in the real world pits, and the car is no longer on the server, which is a real shame. Whatever's happened to Luke today, he was in a good position, and actually, if he had gone into the pits earlier, so I was about to compliment him, because if he had gone into the pits early on, I think that would have been the sensible move, given the dirty air that he was running in and the pace that he's clearly got in the car. But that's all going to come to nothing, unfortunately, today. We're seeing the 43 in the Lamborghini, just getting a little bit wide here and there. So not the cleanest last couple of laps here for Mitch Hobbs in that Lamborghini. And yeah, I will have to also agree with you, Alexis. It was an amazing save. How he held on to that, I don't know. Every time I've gone sideways through there, I score points in Tony Hawk's Skater Pro or whatever the game is called. That's where I get the points. But
Kudos in Project Gotham Racing, you could say.
yeah, that's exactly right. Let's have a look at number 66.
Oh dear, just a bit of grass on the entry into Hawthorne's Bend. Around it went into the gravel. Does he get collected on the outside, or is it just a case of... No, he's gone.
No, for some reason he couldn't get the car restarted there.
Right. He's gone straight... Yeah, straight back in the pit lane, and it's just either disconnected or something. I'm not too sure. It's interesting. That's unfortunate there for Nash that we saw disconnect just a moment ago. So we are down to 22 drivers, but we've still got 45 minutes to go. Plenty of action left in this one, of course. We've had the battles between Britt and Hobbs so far. Oh, there we go. Luke Johnson confirming in chat that he has a hardware issue. So that is really unfortunate there. So I suppose a bit of a mechanical DNF there for the Castrol McLaren. That is never a good sight to see.
Yeah, commiserations to you, Luke. That's a real shame because you were in a great position. You got to answer my question, though. Were you thinking of pitting early? Because I think that might have been the right call. Nonetheless, as Luke will get back to us at some point, and we do rue the loss of several drivers already in this race. Matt Lamb still holding on to P1 by a decent margin at the moment. 5.5 seconds over Paul Britt, who is still in the battle with Mitch Hobbs. 0.7 is the gap between the two. Then it's another 2.5 seconds back to Derry, leading Silver Class at the moment. 3 Silver Class drivers all in a row, battling for that top 3. They're separated by about 5 or 6 seconds out on track, so that is a battle we expect to hot up relatively soon. And then, of course, it's Tony Spence, who's under pressure, a lot of pressure from Jaden Rondanella. And this is it's a very nice, this is nice and easy in the comms box, because we get the 3 top pro drivers, we get the 3 top silver drivers, and it's 3 top pro-am drivers. So it's it's all right there for us on the timing sheet at the moment. Ben Winton still leading the AM class as well. 17 degrees Celsius out there, 21 degrees, on the track. So conditions very stable, which is always nice, actually. It makes it much easier in a race situation.
Oh, certainly, yeah. If it's too hot, the tires just completely melt, and around here they do get a beating, so I'm sure the drivers will be very pleased with the lower track temperatures. But yeah, with the unfortunate disconnect from Johnson, who seemed to have been driving through it pretty much this whole time, but unfortunately he's not been able to drive through whatever issue he's got. Yeah, it's made for quite an intriguing little battle pack for the Pro-Am win currently between Spence, Rondinella, and Kong, who is only about a second behind Rondinella. So, all very, very tight, and I think Slade is slowly closing in on the back of Piper, who is holding steady with the back of Jerry. So it's going to get very interesting as we approach the second half of this race in about 12 and a half minutes time. But here is Jerry is doing a brilliant job, only 2.8 off of Mitch Hobbs. So Jerry in the Mustang, liveried Mustang, is doing wonders right now in the silver class.
Sorry, I thought that was a cardboard box out on track we were seeing. Yes, no, the box that is the Mustang with the best livery on the grid, I think, at the moment, at least in my opinion. Great work by him at the moment. And yeah, Ben Piper still in track though. Only 3 seconds, you can actually see the battle in front of him, which is really fantastic. So the pace has been great from Jeremy Zeri. It is a car that is the livery of the team is called Big Mac Jr., so I'm not quite sure how that relates to a P51. Nonetheless, the Mustang actually looking pretty stable as a whole package around here. Through Sterling's nice apex there, doesn't even need the runoff area on the exit. Really, really good form. And yeah, I do also recall hardware issues I've had trying to drive through it. I tried to do a competition race. My pedal would only go to, well, it would go to 100%. Unfortunately, it would fluctuate between 85 and 90% in game because of a USB issue, and that was a very, very painful period of sim racing for me. Still quite quick, but unfortunately the car did not rev out. Not fun. Did see someone peel into the pits. That's Lloyd and Bank, and class drivers jumping in now at 19 minutes through the race. This battle pack is closed up once again. It might be yet another opportunity, and I think so far, as Pija alluded to earlier on, you overtake when the other car has a mistake, and that's what we saw last time. Maybe we'll see a similar issue between these two. Both the rear ends of these cars not the most stable, as we saw understeer from the Audi into turn one during the overtake that Hobbs managed to do initially, and of course oversteer happening with the Lamborghini, so no fun there. Two McLarens though battling hammer and tong. It is Tony Spence and Jaden Rondinella in the Pro-Am class.
Yeah, indeed, we'll stay on with this battle for the moment. Rondinella finding some very, very solid pace now. He's settled into this one. Spence hasn't really let Slade break too far clear. He's about 2 seconds behind the 560 Ferrari. So, gotta give a shout out to Spence. He's been doing very, very well. Has had to do a lot of defending, but he's been defending very cleanly, very fairly. I believe that's the key part of it. And well, this Pro-Am battle, I did say Kong was closing in. He's now only about 8/10 behind Rondinella. So it is right there for the taking between the top three in Pro-Am right now, as we do have a yellow out on track, and that is the number 72, the number 72 of Winton, your lead AM class driver in this race, but not anymore, as I believe Itaniake will have overtaken him after that moment down at Sheen Curve and just before Sterling's Bend. So that's really unfortunate there for Winton, who is doing such a good job, and he does roll into the pit lane.
Yeah, I did catch a glimpse of that. It was actually the number 27 that had an issue at the top of the hill at Sheen. Did go round, and then I think the number 72, there wasn't actually any contact. No cars collided with each other, but it was just the shock of seeing a car sideways in front of him, it looked like, for number 72, and he just got caught a little bit unawares, overstepped on the brakes or something, and the car just turned on him. Luckily, no subsequent contact from any of that. Maybe there's a little bit of damage, maybe there was a little bit of contact. We'll keep an eye and possibly be able to get a replay of that as well. But yeah, the pit lane, that's a good choice, especially once you've had an accident. Go there, cool down for a little bit, get your fuel in, get that back on track, find a bit of clean air and keep on going. That's the way to do it at Brands Hatch. This battle though, here we go. Ben Piper is closed right up, and whether that's a mistake from Jeremy Zeri, we're not 100% sure. But now he's under a lot of pressure. We're super comfortable in this race. I get the feeling that he has made a mistake, because he's now 6 seconds off the back of Mitch Hobbs. That would have closed the gap by the 3 seconds that was back to Piper. So that is where that's come from. Jeremy Zeri has made a mistake somewhere out on track. And now the Permobil live-read Bentley is attacking him, attacking the escort fighter. Who would have thought?
Yes, indeed. And speaking of making mistakes, unfortunately for Winton, it's a stop-go 30 for speeding in pit lane. So just adds insult to injury, and he's, chances of taking back that AM class win in this race are effectively over with that. But yeah, it does look like Jerry did make an error. He's now 6 seconds behind Hobbs, who is still slowly closing in, but Piper now right on the back of the Mustang, thanks to Jerry's little error. We're not sure what that was, but either way, it's made things very spicy in the silver class. Who needs the second half of this race when you can just have all the action in the first half already?
Those who've made mistakes and want to get back into this race, maybe that's the demographic that we're thinking. Nonetheless, I think, you know, with 38 minutes to go, there's a lot of stuff to happen still out on track and some really close battles, which is absolutely great to see. Here's your dual camera split right now on the left-hand side. It is a continued battle between Zeri and Piper. And on the right-hand side, it is Tony Spence jumping into the pit lane and releasing Jaden Rondinella, who I believe has got P8 right behind him as well. So there we go. The leader of Pro-Am class has jumped into the pits, and Tony Spence will be getting his probably a set of tyres. We'll see exactly what he's done, but certainly get some fuel in that number 420 McLaren, and he'll be back out on circuit in a few moments' time. So this will be really interesting to see how this all stitches back together towards the end, because there will be some that will run for 55 minutes quite happily. And you've got to, of course, bear in mind there is no pit window as well, so you can pit right at the end if you really wanted to.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of varied strategies in this one, and I think that's where this battle is going to really take shape, is in the battle of the pit lane. As we've already seen, you basically need to encourage another driver off the track by putting the pressure on them. And right now it doesn't look like Jerry is ready to make another mistake to potentially let Piper go on through. And Piper, meanwhile, looks like he's driving very well. Does dip the wheel into the grass a little bit just before Sterling's, but does well to avoid going too wide. Can act a little bit like a magnet when you get out there, but so far these two are driving very, very well now that they're right essentially next to each other on the racetrack as they cross line with 36 minutes to go. The gap between Hobbs and Jerry is now down to up to 7 seconds, I should say, and Rondinella is now reacting to the pit stop that Spence made on the previous lap. He's into the pits.
Yeah, I like this driving here from Ben Piper. He's not going for any kind of extreme overtakes. He's quite happy to sit right behind the Ford Mustang and kind of just say, I'm here. You're going to have to keep on looking at this very white livery. You can't ignore it. I'm right here. A little bit of a bad run on the exit of Druids, though, for Ben Piper. Does slightly compromise him, but he'll get the slipstream down Pilgrim Straight. But I think Ben Piper here just needs to keep that pressure on. Just needs to keep tucking into the slipstream, keep tucking in behind the rear wing of the Mustang. If there was one mistake that Zeri has made beforehand, then it's ever so likely that they will do it again. Ben Piper, has always been a cool head for the most part out on track, certainly when I've raced him. And the pressure that he can apply from behind, he's a quick chap. Once he gets a few laps in a row that are really, really quick, I think he just starts to zone in. And when that pressure starts to apply, yeah, it can cause real big mistakes really, really quickly. And then it all starts to compound. And not the best run there through Sterling's either for Zeri, but he's pulled away again. So he's found his pace. And I think that's going to be pretty much battle cooling down for the moment, unless Ben Piper's got a few more revs in that Bentley.
Yeah, indeed, Jerry has reacted to the pressure he sort of put on himself quite well. Gap now up to 0.8 of a second, so doing nicely as we watch on with Yao and Lim. This is a battle for P17 between the number 19 and the 992 of Yao that we're currently on board with. They are a bit further down. They have pit. Speaking of pit stops, Rondinella has come out 1.5 seconds behind Spence, so it was a good call from Spence to come in a little bit earlier. He's managed to consolidate his advantage over the ACH McLaren.
Yeah, that's good work there, and of course that means that Spence has got a little bit of breathing room in the remaining half of this race. 34 minutes to go, of course. So we're coming up on that halfway point. Expect to see a few more jump into the pits. Winton, of course, pitting, and had a little bit of signal loss there from the capture card for just a brief moment. But Ataniake is another we haven't talked too much about. Aston Martin driver, of course, up in P11 and leading the AM class right now. We know that even though Ben Winton was ahead, but before the accident. So Tarindu here looking really strong at the moment for a AM class win today, which would be great to have that under your belt, especially as you barrel towards the halfway point of the season. I don't know the history of Octane Online Racing, but we do know that he's been around for a while and has been racing hard and getting faster, I think, is definitely the call. Few wide exits there through the infield section. Not the most ideal lap, but nonetheless, the Aston Martin looking beautiful. I love the... you'd expect to see an Aston Martin in green here, but to be honest, I don't mind the red and the black, actually. I think it looks quite nice.
Yeah, the Redback Racing livery on the number 2 of Thrindu Ataniake looking beautiful on the Aston Martin there. Can't really say too many bad things about it, really. It does look very poisonous as the Redback Spider is. Jerry is coming to the pits. He should come out fair way ahead of Spence and Ronell, you would say. We'll see when he starts moving. The 222 still yet to move. The just looking, Spence is going through final corner. It's the turn 1, the 786 has gone around. That is Bank, who was unfortunately turned around there at Paddock Hill Bend. Was a little bit of a tussle there with Lloyd, so I hope they have not made contact, but Jerry is now out of the pits and he is well clear of Spence right now.
Exactly right. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on the battles around the track as we barrel towards halfway through this race. Matthew Lamb still in the lead, got the fastest lap to his name, a 1:22.5, I believe it was. That's saying something slightly different on my timing sheets right now, but that's all good. 7.7 seconds to gap. Matthew Lamb, not accustomed to having this little screen time, or maybe he is, because he often has a large gap out front, but this is really dominant from him today in the Porsche, which usually tries to murder its victim, driver. Today, really working out, and it looks pretty stable, I have to admit, from what I've seen around the grid so far of the Porsche drivers, and in the hands of Matt Lamb. Well, of course, it's going to be a pretty stable bit of kit. We're seeing a bit of blue flag action as well, just around where he's at. So the blue flag's starting to come into play, and that's not an easy situation with the blue flags here, whether you're being blue flagged or whether you're overtaking, because it's so difficult. You've got such a short amount of period, especially through the infield section, to actually figure out where you're putting the car. So you often have to find yourself really compromised if you do have a blue flag. This is the battle we're on board with right now. Paul Britt versus Hobbs, and of course the 37 is ahead still, but this pressure is big.
It's mounting now on Britt, who is 8.3 seconds behind your race leader in Matthew Lamb, who it's really just business as usual for Lamb out front. Has that gap extended over this final sector? Oh, you bet it has, by another 10th of a second, but Hobbs holding in there. He's been within a second for the past few laps now as we approach the halfway mark of this race. I wonder who will blink first out of these two, but right now, ever since those two mistakes they've made at Paddock Hill Bend, which allowed them to trade positions, been very smooth sailing for both of them, who have been able to withstand the pressure that they've been applying to each other very well, as we now see Kong into the pit lane. So that will be tight, I'd say, between himself, Spence, and Rondinella. Rondinella hasn't had the pace in this second stint. He's now 2.1 seconds behind Spence. At the end of the pit stops, it was 1.2 seconds, so has lost a little bit of time, as that is wide from both these drivers, really pushing the limits as they approach some blue flag traffic.
Here we go. This is where the fun begins. And that's a big yellow flag. That's Kidman, I believe, isn't it?
786 is Bank.
That is Bank. That's Ibrahim Bank, and he's had a shocker of a lap, unfortunately. He had the potential contact at turn 1, certainly found himself out in the gravel trap, and he's just been crawling around. I saw him stopped on the circuit up Pilgrim's Hill as well, and he was trying to let cars through. It was awkward. That's a late entry from Paul Britt. Late entry, decided I've got to send it, and he just does it in, and he's in. But yeah, Hobbs obviously was planning to do that, but I think Paul Britt just made a bit of a split decision, realizing, you know what, it's time to come in, whether that's related to fuel or not. But yeah, crikey, that was a little bit of a scary moment there, especially with the entry where it comes round back to the left. If you're cutting in deep from the right, well, that's quite a tight angle. So good reaction speed from Mitch Hobbs as well, not to make contact.
Indeed. Not sure whether the stewards are actually looking at pit entries here, given the nature of the entry line. I know they do like to look at whether they're going through the lines properly, but Brit now has a much larger lead over Hobbs. I wonder if Hobbs may have just overshot his box a little bit, or potentially Hobbs has tried to go for a tire change strategy here, because he's a long way back now. It wouldn't surprise me if he's actually chosen to change the tires.
It wouldn't surprise me either, especially with the amount of time he's run in the dirty air behind Brit. And, you know, in those situations, you can lose a lot of pressures in the tyre. You can end up overheating the tyre quite a bit. You'd start leaning on the tyre a little bit more because you just don't have that clean air to really get the car to turn in. And especially at a circle like this, in the Lamborghini, you're kind of relying on that. So it does look like a no tyre change for Paul Brit and probably a tyre change for Hobbs. And it is about a 5-second gap out on track based on what we're seeing right now. That might update as we barrel through Sector 1. And it's still about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it was 5 seconds when they went through the Sector 1 split, as Lamb now comes into the pits.
There we go. So leader, he's at no risk from being overtaken unless he misses his pit box, reverses, turns off the car, misses it again, disconnects from the server, reconnects, and then gets going. So unless he does something like that, he's all good. Still with that fastest lap to his name as well. So the question now is, Alexis, Hobbs, does he have the pace in that clean air with fresh tyres to make it back to the rear wing of Brit, and can he do it not only in time for the end of the race, but then actually get the overtake? Will the advantage that he's got in those new tyres be beneficial to him if he ends up in the dirty air again?
It's a really interesting question that will get answered, and half a tenth through that final sector suggests that yes, Mitch Hobbs has likely changed the tyres, and based on the gap between Lamb and Brit now, which we will get at the first sector split coming up shortly, I think Lamb may have changed the tyres as well, just to be on the safe side. And that gap, yeah, it's down to about 5.5 seconds.
Oh, yeah, so this should close up relatively quickly. I'd be surprised if he wasn't on the rear wing within 10 minutes or so, but we'll see, because again, this comes back to that qualifying stuff that we were talking about. If you push the car too hard, you're going to start making more mistakes, and at this point, with Paul Brit coming out of the pits and seeing a 5-second gap, he's going, right, well, I just need to manage the tyres, I need to manage the pace. I'm not going to be setting the world alight with fastest laps going forward. And then we go a race control penalty applied to Ibrahim Bank, a 10-second penalty for ignoring blue flags on lap 21. So he's unfortunately been slapped with that, so his race is in a little bit of shambles. He's been sitting in the pits, actually, so we may see him get going in. No, he has gone, unfortunately. So it's a shame to lose another driver. We are down to 21. But as I was saying, with regards to Paul Brit, I think at this point, it's really on him to control his race and be nice and calm and consistent. Please, Paul. Otherwise, we are sending you our hospital bills for heart attacks.
That is not calm. That is not clean. That is the exact opposite of what Mr. Cookie has just told you to achieve. But in that lap, the gap between Brit and Hobbs has dropped by about a second. So, yeah.
Okay, well, if it's a second delta per lap that he's seeing out there, then no, he can't be calm. He needs to push.
Yeah, he has to push, and I think the saving grace for Brit is that by the time that Hobbs does, look at how much he's pushing. It's loose coming out of Surtees' corner. The thing that's going to be saving Brit here, I feel, is dirty air and the trickiness of overtaking at Brands Hatch, but I'll be honest, it's looking a little bit tight. And interestingly enough, in the battle for the Pro-Am class, Kong has gotten through on Rondinella, while for the Silver class, they've all the Pro-Ams that we were talking about, they're 4.5 seconds clear of Caffel Slade.
Yeah, how's that happened? So Kafil's not had a good time out there. He was in the battle. He was up there in P6, actually, because we had 3 pros, 3 silvers, and 3 pro-ams, and now Kafil Slade's down in P9 and 4.5 seconds back from Jaden Rondinella. So that is a bizarre development in this race, and it really puts Kafil Slade out of any kind of shot of getting up there into P2 or P1 in the silver category. Shame for him and his race, and the potential of us seeing a grand battle in silver class sort of slightly evaporates, which is unfortunate, but that puts Piper basically back in the box seat to get himself up ahead of Zeri, but Zeri's got the pace again, so we shall see. I think what we've seen here with Hobbs and Brit is that the take tyre strategy, instinctually that's what I would have gone for, I'm not an alien driver like these guys. I'm not anywhere near as quick as these guys. But my general instinct, and especially because I'm a McLaren driver, is take tyres. You just do it. You know you're going to be fast. Even if you lose track position, if you've got massive amounts more grip, and as we're seeing here, the gap's getting closer and closer. It's now down to 2 seconds. So I said it was going to be about 10 minutes. He should be on his rear wing. It's going to be more like 5 or 6 minutes. It's only been a handful of laps since they came out of the pits, and already you can see Hobbs is right there.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's only 5 seconds that you're losing compared to the 25-second fixed fuel stop when you're adding the tire change on top of it. So when you're thinking about that and the amount of time you gain on the fresh tires compared to staying on the older tires, it does make sense. But at the same time, track position is very, very important at a circuit like this. And we've seen great defense from many drivers tonight, including Tony Spence earlier, as we look at a replay of what happened to Kafil Slade. He's coming up through, oh dear, wide at Sterling's. That's cost him quite a bit of time. And what's he done now through Clark Kirby's entered the pit lane. He does pull it up.